First, I went through ancient Chinese history in Yao to Mao. Then I did a biography of Mao. Naturally, I have to complete this trio of books, From Mao to Now by David Shambaugh. Let me start by saying that I'm so glad a book like this exists. We generally know about Mao Zedong and everything that was going on in the aftermath of World War II, and we know where China is today, but what happened in between there? And this book lays it out very well. It's written for people who don't know much on the subject, which is me. So it was perfect at walking me through it. The structure of the book is brilliant because he starts off talking about the 5 men that you need to remember in order to keep track of this time period. And then he goes through them with mini biographies that consists of the meat of the middle of the book, and then in the end he summarizes everything. So it's kind of structured like you're learning a foreign language. There's a lot of repetition, a lot of rephrasing things, and so by the end you really feel like you've learned the concept. I think the book is also effective because it has such a clear focus. He's talking about these 5 men that shaped China, and there's a lot of other things that he could have gone into about the specifics of the Chinese bureaucracy, other lives he could have picked out, but he keeps it just to the 5 men. And I think that's another reason why the book was effective. Who are these 5 men, you may ask? Well, I read the book, so now I can easily tell you. First was Mao Zedong, populist tyrant. He took over China in the 1940s and became the autocratic ruler of a horrible regime, as I detail more in the Mao biography that I read. After Mao came number 2, Deng Xiaoping, pragmatic Leninist. Deng was the opposite of Mao in almost every respect. He was pragmatic where Mao was ideological. He was soft-spoken when Mao was outspoken. He was non-repressive and looked for collaboration and consensus, where Mao didn't listen to anyone else but himself. Deng Xiaoping was very practical in his approach to running China, and so it turned a little more capitalist and less ideologically communist like it was before. And that's when China started taking off and the standard of living increased, and a lot of good things for the average people of China started with Deng Xiaoping. Number 3, Jiang Zemin, bureaucratic politician. He came in after the Tiananmen Square incident, and he wasn't expected to last very long, but he was so good at manipulating the bureaucracy and working with the different systems that they have there in China that he stayed for quite a while. He saw a lot of GDP percentage growth year to year while he was in power, and he had a mindset of growth at all costs. There were issues of crime and corruption that came up during his time, but overall their standard of living drastically increased across China. And personally, he was very extroverted, outward. He liked speaking off the cuff at places, which was very different from number 4, Hu Jintao. Hu Jintao didn't have a lot of an outward personality. He always stayed to the script, was always about the party line, and a famous article was written, "Who's Who?" because his personality kind of blended into whatever the party was. He wasn't as savvy with the bureaucracy of China like Jiang was, and a lot of people think of the 10 years in the 2000s that he oversaw China as the lost 10 years. But basically he just kept China on the tracks because GDP growth continued and no big issues came up. Then we get to number 5, Xi Jinping, modern emperor. This is where the book got interesting and a bit unsettling for me, because you're watching this progress happen through China as you're going through, and then you get to Xi Jinping where you get this resurrection of Mao, which is a horrifying thought. Xi Jinping eliminated term limits and is now the central leader of China. So he's the one who interprets the past, and he's the visionary for the future. And just like the days of Mao, he has his books as mandatory reading, and he awards people social points for doing the right thing. We get extreme surveillance, extreme crackdown on enemies. We get the surveillance state, which kind of sounds like material for a science fiction dystopian novel, but happening today in our lives right now. So it's kind of creepy. I don't know where China is headed, but after reading The Great Wall of Debt, which I also did a review of, I just feel like something is about to give in China. You have extreme loads of censorship and surveillance, and you have numbers that are probably made up. There's just so much we don't know, and a lot of debt, and demographic issues. You just feel like something is going to give, and it's very likely we're going to be there to see it happen, whatever it is in the next, I don't know, 10 years, 20 years. I feel like at this point it's a waiting game. One of the things that I got out of this book was how much the personality type of one central leader can affect 1.4 billion people. If he's good and reasonable, then that's great for the 1.4 billion people. And if he is a nutcase, then there's not much they can do. So it's very scary that one of the most populated countries in the world has this centralized system of power. So let's keep watching, let's see what happens, and let's see what the next leader of China is and how he fits in with all these other leaders. But as for this book itself goes, perfect for what it was trying to accomplish. It was exactly what I was hoping for. I'm going to give it 5 stars.